Thank you very much for coming. It is, and apologies, you've already heard me 4 times yesterday. My patter doesn't get any better than the ones you heard yesterday, so you have to bear with me. It is great to see people, though. It is lovely to be able to welcome you back into our homes and into the school and actually see people and have the conversations that we need to have and that we love to have about your daughters and for the benefit of your daughters. So it is great to see you all. Thank you very much for coming. People at home, I'm going to be talking to you now. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying a nice glass of wine at home and sitting back and relaxing. It's not live, but this is recorded, so just be aware if there's mumblings at the back, it might get picked up. I'm going to pass you over very quickly to the team, and they are going to sort of talk you through the Year 2 curriculum. The girls have come back on absolute cracking form. They've skipped into school, and it's just, we just love having them around. We do 3 days of insects, and it's all a bit, it's great to be back for ourselves, but when the girls come back, that's when the heart and soul comes back into the school, so it's lovely to see them. To my left here, or my right, your left, is Miss Naylor. She is our head of pre-prep, and then Mrs. Allback has run away. She was there. Something I said, I don't know, but she was there. So Mrs. Allback is our deputy head of teaching and learning. There she is. So I'm going to now pass you over to our 2 amazing Year 2 teachers, and they're going to tell you all about the exciting year your girls are going to have. Thank you.
Thank you, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we just wanted to really echo those words. It's so lovely to have parents back in the school. My goodness, fabulous. And to actually share in your daughter's journey, to use that word, as well, because it's so important that through what we do in school, that's reflected a little bit at home as well. And if you have any questions, queries, we are here, we're happy to help. It's not just on a screen anymore, or through a car window where you hardly even get to say hello to anyone, or even sort of actually recognise anyone, so it's lovely to have you back in. We thought we'd start just by confirming the team probably have figured out who's 2W, who's 2B by now. Mr. Williams, Mrs. Belton, and Miss Naylor as well on Fridays too for 2B. And we're assisted by Mrs. Giddemole and Mrs. Barnett, who some of you may know from Year 1 too. Amazing PE team, and they'll be looking after the girls through the different game sessions and PE at Hinchley Wood and swimming this term as well. And of course Mr. Ray with music and choir, and a slight change because I think it was Madame Arminger before in Year 1, but Madame Pagnal now is doing French for all of Year 2. So that is the team who'll be looking after your daughter in various different lessons, but predominantly the form teachers as well. So on to really, I guess, one of the main things, the well-being of children, particularly, I guess, post-COVID, coming back into school, all those sorts of things, wrapped into our price values in school, just to give you a little reminder of what those are. And if there are chances to reflect those at home, that's fabulous too. But the main thing that we look at is positive reinforcement. So not highlighting poor behaviour, but highlighting what we want to see the rest of them do. Classic example is when the girls first come into the classroom in the morning or for the first lesson. Oh, fabulous, I love how this table is sitting so beautifully and quietly. They're all ready for the lesson. Suddenly, before you know it, everybody else has done exactly the same thing. Rather than going, oh, why are we wandering around the classroom? Let's come in, what are you doing over here? Highlighting actually what we don't want the girls to be doing. And that goes through different lessons, it goes through even simple things like handwriting, or I love how much attention you're paying to your finger spaces or to your letter formation. And suddenly, before you know it, everybody else in the classroom is doing a similar thing. So it's that kind of positive reinforcement, praising what we want to see more of. And goodness me, as Mr. Williams said earlier, the way the girls have started, thankfully it is really not hard to find fabulous examples of what the girls are doing, both in school, in the corridors, in the playgrounds, and praising that behaviour. They're off to a flying start. Really impressive. And of course we reward that with house points for individual effort, more effort than achievement definitely, but also the price awards, just to remind us what those are. Politeness, and this is in classroom, it's outside, it's in the playground, it's at Hinchley Wood, wherever it might be, and it's any teacher, any adult in the school can give these rewards as well. They're celebrated in assembly, they stand up, they get their card, so it's politeness, resilience, and I think that's quite an interesting one for Year 2. We do focus on that a little more as well. In resilience kind of coupled with independence is a big Year 2 focus. We are here to help, definitely. However, have you given yourself a chance first? Kind of question back to the girls. Yes, I can help you with spelling, but have you used your phonics? Yes, I can help you with this, however, have you maybe asked a friend or a buddy or someone on your table first? Getting the girls to make sure they've actually used their brilliant brains before they just ask someone else to sort of do it for them. So that's a bit of a year 2 focus. The resilience, keep going when it's tricky, of course, but coupled with the independence are big, big focuses. Caring, girls are fabulous, but just to make sure it's not just their friends and their buddies, it's also the class equipment, the school equipment for each other around the place as well, those sorts of things too. And effort, obviously a massive one. That's the big source of praise, that's the big source of house points. If they're trying their best, that's fabulous, that's what we're after. And the prize tree on the wall just out here, if they achieve these awards, which I'm sure they will at various stages through the year, they get a leaf that goes on the tree, they're celebrated assembly. It's actually quite a nice big deal for them as well. It's something for them to go and have a look at. You can show their friends. You sometimes see the girls pointing out to each other and so on, and that's rather lovely to see. So that's the prize system coupled with the positive reinforcement.
Okay, and we have a curriculum overview which can be found on MIS Parents, and it says curriculum overview, and you can find year 2. And it just goes through what we're doing for each subject each year to give you a bit more of an idea. So with English this term, we're particularly focusing on the basics, punctuation, capital letters and full stops, but we talk a little bit about that, give you some information. For maths, we're particularly concentrating on number, so we've done lots on place value, and we do lots on that kind of thing. And at the end of the overview, so it covers every subject to just give you a rough idea, it then goes, it gives you some ideas about what you could do at home as well. So I know we set homework, and we'll come on to that in a minute, but sometimes kids, they do get a bit bored, or in the holidays they might want something to do, and it might be you can direct them. We give you some ideas of what you might want to do on some various apps that you could go on, or poetry that you could look at, or books to read. We'll come on to reading as well, or a museum trip that might link with something. So we give lots of ideas for that, and we'll come on to that shortly. We start off then this term with our topic, which is incredible journeys. And so they are going around the world, which is quite amazing at the moment. So they are travelling around the world, and we'll be looking at different countries and finding out the difference between continents and countries. We'll be starting off in Africa and reading a really lovely book, and then doing some writing about Africa, and a little character, a little girl in that. Really thinking about our adjectives and how we write a story. And then we'll be linking, it's all very cross-curricular, so we'll be looking in science at the importance of water and water aid, and we'll have a workshop about that as well. There are a few workshops coming up. And then we go from Africa, we go to India, which links into Diwali and the Festival of Light, and we find out about Rama and Sita, and we bring that in again into other subjects. So in art, we make some Rama and Sita puppets and things like that. So we do lots of cross-curricular. So we go around the world, we go to the Galapagos Islands of South America, and we do some research and some non-fiction work, this time finding out about different animals, and they get very excited finding out about seals and different tortoises that live there and things like that. So they get to do quite a lot of work on that. So we find out about explorers, and we just have a little bit of a journey around the world, exploring the different countries and how different places are, and we celebrate our differences basically as well. We very much think about that, different countries, different cultures, celebrating our differences.
Absolutely. And then next term we split by the half terms. We have 2 different topics. First term is Enchanted Woodlands, which is fairy tales, and I know they did a fair bit of fairy tales in year 1. This is a little bit of a deeper look, and it's really looking at the structure of the story writing as well. And fairy tales often have the very clear beginning, middle and end. We add a little bit of extra detail into that too, but make sure the girls are aware that good stories do have that, and also into the sort of planning of their writing too, to make sure that they can get through to, not necessarily always finish, but they are following a good structure to their stories. But one of the big things fairy tales are fabulous for, of course, is the character descriptions, the setting descriptions, using those adjectives to describe places, to describe the characters in there. And adjectives is a massive focus for year 2. So they're taking their sentences, the more simple sentences, I suppose, and really enhancing those with extra detail, describing the people, describing the places. Any noun, we sometimes say to the latter part of year 2, are there any nouns there that we have not paid attention to? How can we describe that? We've talked about a tree or a forest. Well, what kind of tree forest is it? And we talk about how there are differences of those. And encourage the girls, once they've started to sort of pick up the basics of adjectives, to start to reach for those beyond that first idea. or there was a kind girl. Fabulous, but how do we know she's kind? What other words could we use? Let's dive a little deeper. First term, good adjectives is what we're after, and then we start to go a little deeper as we go through. And that starts really this term, it's really enhanced this term, in the second term too. And again, of course, cross-curricular into science, plants and trees and seeds and bulbs and so on, all linking into the woodland theme as well. Second half of next term is Great Fire of London, but again, massively cross-curricular. English, diary writing, Samuel Pepys, of course, humanities, map skills, looking at changes, how things have moved through history as well, looking at different time periods and comparing and contrasting, science, baking bread. They will bring home a bread roll, we hope, for your absolute enjoyment. They're usually pretty tasty, I guess. But it also ties into English, instruction writing, those sorts of things as well. So the girls have that theme going through. And art, they build their own Tudor house and burn it down. Set up a street, set up Pudding Lane, understand why the fire spread. Hopefully don't get too upset that I'm burning the work that I've just done, but we'll cover that, don't worry. But it's a bit of fun involved in there as well. It has to be fun. If the girls are having fun and enjoying themselves, they'll be learning really well. That's the theory for sure.
Okay, and then with the final summer term, which seems a long way away now, but we'll be looking at Thinkers and Dreamers is the title. We'll be looking at famous inventors, starting off with Leonardo da Vinci, but talking about inventions and what are the most significant inventions, and they think about that and what's really helped us, and they try and put it in order as well about what inventions might have come first. So we think about inventors, and then we move on to inspiring women. So we really do think about different scientists, people that have done lots of different things, flown across the Atlantic, first woman to fly across the Atlantic. So we look at all the amazing things that people have done to just inspire the girls. We also do quite a lot, because I love art too, about Frida Kahlo, so we find out about her. So we do, again, it's very cross-curricular, finding out a lot about inspiring women to really get the girls going. And homework. So we do have homework. It is it's once a week, but there are 2 subjects. So it gets set on a Friday, and it can then be in the following Thursday. But we do say, if you do it, maybe on that weekend, if you can bring it in on the Monday or whenever throughout the week, we can then mark it and feed back to the girls as well before we give it back to them again. So it's quite useful for us, but obviously to fit in with your plans. So it's 20 minutes. And with English, we tend to set each week the same thing, because it works quite well as routine, a few spellings. And then we ask the girls to write the spellings into sentences. And we're coming home this year with a handwriting book. So it will help them, we think, with their letter formation. So although we're not expecting them to join, we haven't really done much joining yet, we'll be doing that. But at least they can think about their letter size when they're using it. And again, as they get more experience throughout the year, they can then have more ambitious sentences that they write. So if we do a little bit on speech marks, or a little bit on apostrophes or something throughout the year, obviously they can make those sentences even more exciting, build in those adjectives we're talking about. So the idea is they use those spellings in a sentence, they practice them, they practice their spellings, their capital letters and their full stops to start with, but then other things as the year progresses. And then with maths, it's 20 minutes. And we will probably alternate a little bit between setting something on a sheet that comes home in a folder that links into what we've done in the week. So at the moment, homework will start next week, but it will be something to do with number and place value to reinforce what they've been learning. But we will do Mathletics, so there's an app, and we'll go through all those apps with the girls at school so they're familiar with them. And we'll give you, in your little reading record book that comes home, the passwords will be stuck in at the back. So you've got the passwords for Mathletics and Numbots and things that we use. And we set them tasks on Mathletics, and then we as teachers will go and check those tasks. So it's not one of those homeworks they can go, well, I've just got Mathletics, not do it. But they love doing it because they're on, hopefully you can give them access to a computer, iPad, they can then go onto the app. And it's just a really fun way of practicing their number skills. And they've got certain tasks that are set. And again, we start off a bit easier and it gets more difficult so they don't get too put off. It gets harder and harder, but in a good way, it's challenging for them. So that's the homework. We also, I'll come on to it in a bit when we come to reading, but there's some other things that we can suggest, but we will give them each week with the homework that comes home a reading book again, so they get set like we would have done in year 1, some reading to do and a little logbook to write in again. So So that's once a week as well, and again we'll check that when it comes back in again. Okay.
And I guess new this year, we're trying to pick up some of the things that might be a little different or have changed slightly from year one. Very much touched on that earlier, but that more independent working. It's not totally independent, here's a sheet, off you go, girls. We are very much there to help, of course. However, there's a little more expectation that the girls have given it a really good go themselves first. Use those sorts of strategies. Clearly, week one, we're not quite in full year two independence mode yet. It will phase in through this term, through the year. But that is an expectation of ours. And we've talked to the girls about that already, just to say that this is what we expect. And it's because they're capable of doing it. But not to also be afraid, if they do need help, they do need assistance, please let us know. Don't sit there thinking, oh my goodness, I can't ask for help, I've got to just sit here and struggle. That is not what it's about either. But that there is that expectation that they can actually use those. One of the classic things in year two is spelling. How do I spell X word? Well, hang on, before you ask me, have you checked your phonics? Have you sounded out the word? Use those skills that you've got. Yes, of course, we're there to help, but that focus on them being that little more independent. We also do a little more peer sharing, so looking at friends' work, what we liked, what we were really impressed with, and magpieing is a phrase we use a lot, so taking somebody's idea and thinking, wow, whether it's shared verbally, whether it's they've looked at their written work at the end of a piece of work and thinking, hang on, that's fabulous, I'm going to use that in my next piece of writing, or that problem-solving method for my bit of maths. It's not copying, there's no problem with it, it's actually inspiring other people and using that. And we then talk about, oh, she's just used your idea in her writing, how does that make you feel? And there's often a, fabulous. So it's a good positive thing. And they also get a chance to see what their colleagues are actually doing, their peers are actually doing as well. And I think that's hugely important, their friends, their table buddies, all those sorts of things. And as you're probably well aware, tomorrow swimming starts, and that is a new thing. Thank goodness we're back swimming. And that's all good. PE department looking after that. And then homework. Oh, hang on, I've gone backwards. Sorry, that doesn't help. There we go.
Yeah. Well, homework, in fact, I was just going to say, with homework, if you perhaps go back to that previous slide, that one there. On MIS again, if you go into MIS parents, and then it will say reading recommendations, and you click on that, it will come up with all the different year groups and lots of reading lists, which is just fabulous.
Yeah.
And it's in genre order, but it's in year order, and you can really pick, choose, find books to read. So of course we'll be sending home books to help with their reading, but again, the enjoyment of reading, to find a book that they love is just amazing, and there are so many suggestions there. So that is very well worth having a look at.
And then support at home, again we've touched on quite a lot of these already, but that reading, whether it's the school books we've sent home or other books, other things they're interested in, for pleasure, to build up that enjoyment of it. It can be any topic they like. If they're really into a certain something, fabulous, they could read a book or an article or something on that. But I think if you have the time, and I know that can be an issue sometimes, it's not a problem, but if you do have the time to read with them, just to check their understanding here, could they recap what's just happened? Could they maybe make a prediction? Obviously our big focus is on adjectives as well. If you come across a lovely setting description of a place, or a great character description, or a super adjective, maybe just to stop and have a chat with your daughter and say, what do we think about this word? What does it mean? Why maybe has the author used it? And for character descriptions, what does this tell us about the character? Those little questions, just to see where the girls go with that. That little thing just to help with their reading as well, and to check their understanding is brilliant. And for mental maths, there are all sorts of different games. A lot of those are on the curriculum overview as well. But one of the simplest ones, one of my favourite, is number one's ping pong. Even to play it in the car on the way into school could be a possible. We're making 10 or we're making 20. Not to put any of you on the spot, I say we're making 10, Mrs. Bolton. I say 6, you say
4.
There you go, nice and simple. They can be the teacher. They can set you the question. Can they catch out Mummy and Daddy? Can they catch out whoever they're taking to school? Yeah. They love doing that. Beat the teacher is one of their most favourite things to do. And of course we let them. We don't make mistakes. We let them. Of course we do, yeah. And suggested activity, they're all on the curriculum overview, or a good number of them as well. And if there's anything else you want a hand with, or they're particularly into a certain area, please let us know and we can try and see if we can help as well.
Okay, and finally, just a quick one on zones of regulation, which I think they will have come across a lot, well, they would have done in year 1. And again, it's just a way of talking to them about their own feelings. So we hope to be all of us in the green zone. We are in different zones throughout the day. The green zone is our calmest, happiest zone that we're in, and that's our best zone for learning. But sometimes things happen that make us feel cross, and we might be in the red zone, or something might happen that make us feel a bit blue, a bit sad, and we're in the blue zone. So we talk about trying to get them to, talk about how they're feeling and what strategies we can use with them to help them. If they're suddenly feeling a bit cross, do they need to speak to a teacher? Do they need to... We sometimes talk about doing a strategy where they can just calm down for a minute or do something to help them. So we talk about that, and we talk about the size of the problem as well, because I know it's a bit daunting sometimes when they're coming in and in the mornings. Actually, they've been amazing, but sometimes when they think they've forgotten something, they can get a little bit, I've forgotten something, and it becomes a little bit of a drama. Whereas you've talked about that, haven't you? That actually, if we can say, do we need to call the police? Is it a complete nightmare because we've forgotten a PE kit or we've broken a pencil? It doesn't, it's fine. We talk about the size of the problem and that it's okay. So that's the kind of thing we talk about with them.
And even just using that language, I had an example the other day, a pencil had broken, literally been writing, pencil broken, oh my God, absolute. And it was literally number 5 is not just speak to me, let's get the head involved, let's bring the army in there, we need this person arrested, whatever's happened, get the Queen, wake her up, come on. And the same goes, is this really at this end of the scale? There was a kind of like moment where I think she was going to go, oh yeah. But I think actually it gives them a moment just to settle and think, oh hang on, actually no. You know what, I can solve this myself. Again, back to that independence thing as well. So just using that language, what's the size of this problem? Simple as that sometimes. What zone are we in? Simple as that. Using that language can really help, definitely. Brilliant.
Okay, and I think really it's just a few other things about next week's the week when clubs start. So it would be quite useful if you could just remind your little one what club they've got, because it helps them sometimes at the end of the day when we're running through the end of the day list. If they remember that they've got a club on that day, it just, again, that whole size of problem thing, if they go, oh yes, I know I've got art club or something, they feel much happy about that if they know what they're doing at the end of the day. And again, there's a buddy system that I'm sure you've all used, but you can look on that again to just check what clubs you've signed your girls up to, so that it just makes life easier for them. And for next week, really, when we start.
Quick little reminder at drop-off, fabulous. Oh, don't forget you're going X or doing this at the end of the day. Brilliant. Super.
They've had such a brilliant start, haven't they?
Absolutely. Really impressed with them, definitely.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much indeed. You've been so succinct, we actually have some time for any questions about the curriculum. So, are there any questions you'd like answered about what's coming up this year? Go for it.
Just because you said at home it'd be useful to do some times tables, how do you teach times tables? Is it by rote, like we learned?
Again, this year is the 2 and the 5s and the 10s, and you can do that in the car. Again, sometimes it's best to do things on the way to school when you're snatching a bit of time or walking to school, so you can go through the times tables. But we do have a brilliant app called the Times Tables Rockstars, and again, that will be, the password will be in your reading book, and you can click. Well, again, we'll be showing the girls over time. We'll be getting them involved in that. So they're not. I'm not sure if they've done that in year 1 yet, have they?
So
but that's something we'll work into.
The way we start teaching it is with physical counting in groups of. And in fact, instead of using the terminology times, we say that this means groups of. So it's 2 groups of 2 rather than 2 times 2. So they really understand what they're doing. They line them up in, we call them arrays. We've mentioned them in year 1 actually previously. So it follows on from their learning. And only when they're ready do they start saying things to you like, oh yeah, 5 times 2 is 10. That will come through the year.
And we'll be doing a lot more on the times table, in fact, after Christmas. So in this first time, it's
term.
more about number bonds or just adding up in your head, things like that.
Counting
8 plus 3 or even counting up in 2s. Just getting them really familiar with number.
Yeah, that's the first step. So counting in 2s, 5s and 10s leads on to multiplication more specifically next term.
Most of them are great at 2s and 10s. It's 5s that are a little bit trickier. So just take your time. But everyone will be at different places, and that's fine. Fine all the way through the school.
But you could say to them, like, what is 11 plus 2? Because eventually a lot of them use their fingers, and I always say to them, it's fine, you can use your fingers, but obviously eventually you want to get them to be able to do it in their head. So if you can just practice that sometimes and go, right, what's 9 plus 3? And eventually they can do it, but to start with they're going to go,
So I think the number bonds, the making 10, making 20, when you've got the sort of partner numbers, if you like making 20, I've got 12, you've got 8. That's the first step. Once they're secure in that, then I think you move on to the number facts, which is adding and subtracting within 20. So the answer is 20 or less, but it can be an addition or a subtraction. So it's generally relatively small numbers that are being added and taken away. And exactly as you said, moving from that quick little to actually, hang on, I know this. Or hang on, I can use maybe my number facts to help me with this one. Or even a little bit of rounding. It's a near number fact, near number bond, sorry, so I can use that to help me as well. That isn't something I'd expect to see immediately, of course. That's a little further into year 2, but starting to use those sort of mathematical strategies to help them. Then times tables comes after that as well. But for them to be more secure in those 2 steps first will definitely help them with that.
They're so key. Just following on to Key Stage 2, when they start using the methods we learn at school with column addition and subtraction. If they're still having to use their fingers, then they've got to carry too much going on in their brain. So they can know them by heart, they can concentrate on where to lay out the sums.
And it's that fluency as well. Sometimes girls will say...
No. It's a plea from Mr. Peters.
It's the fluency. Sometimes the girls say, I know my number bonds to 10. That's great, but is it instant? Do I have to think about it, or can I just go book and say it? And I guess eventually, not straight away, but eventually that's the same for times tables as well. Definitely.
And long division by the summer term? Brilliant. That's my job done then. Any other questions? Hello, yes.
What kind of access to the school library the girls they have
question.
in year 2?
That's a very good question. We will be taking them to the library. So the idea is each week we're going to try and set up a system where they can go to the library at break time, on the break times, and have some story time and listen to stories. But we'll also be factoring in, hopefully, at least once a fortnight, where we go down to the library and they have a chance to look at the books and take books out and take books home. So we're aiming for at least once a fortnight, if not once a week, but certainly once a fortnight.
And they go down as a class, because actually it's rather nice for them to see what their friends are. Oh, this is a great book. Oh, I've read that one. That was great. Oh, recommendations from their friends, fantastic. So that's obviously what that's there to promote as well, big time.
With a bit of guidance.
There
They won't be coming home
there
with 4 apiece.
is.
Great question, thank you. Any others? Okay, well, the team are going to be just outside in reception, so if you have any specific questions about year 2, you're most welcome to ask them that. Otherwise, thank you very, very much for coming. It is lovely to see you, and enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you in school soon.